Okay, so this is a topic about when I was in a abusive relationship, but I'm not trying to play the victim. I want to talk about how my mindset was and how I can think about it now with a clear mind and how I was able to use that situation to get the best outcome possible. It's going to involve different spiritual aspects and different, physical reality aspects. And I'll probably jump around between the past, present, and future, whatever, as I go through it. I didn't plan out this video. I didn't have any planned topics to point out. I'll just go through it in then I guess generally like chronological order until I get off track. Okay, well this starts off actually before the abusive relationship. It starts off with my college relationship. At the time I was wanting to date, guys in college, but it seemed like all of the guys, since it was a Catholic university, I guess they were, I don't know, saving for marriage or kind of respectful, and I just wanted to have sex. To be frank, I just wanted to have sex. I didn't think about it that clearly at the time, but thinking about it in hindsight, that's probably just all I wanted. So at the time I got a boyfriend, but I guess he assumed I was saving it for marriage or something. So there was sexual frustration of wanting something but not getting it. But we were together for a few years in college. We ended up breaking up after everything was said and done. Pretty much when I graduated, and he still had like a semester left. We were still friends after that. He even helped me move into my apartment and then into this house. And then I guess after that we lost touch. I mostly just didn't want to hurt him again, so I felt like if I talked to him, there was a risk I would hurt him or bring up bad memories. He never said anything not to talk to him again. That's just all me. But so at the time in the middle of the relationship, we were dating, and one of the things we were doing was playing an MMORPG. It wasn't even probably the best one out there. It was just a free one. He was playing it at first, and then I started playing it to join him. In general, I do like video games. Like, they're fun. I don't play them so much anymore because I feel like I have the real life RPG. But video games and like fantasy TV let you, kind of see and explore a universe that's beyond the physical limitations. But anyways, so yeah, in the MMORPG, there was a lot of guys talking to me. As a girl in a video game, I mean, you just get a lot more attention than you signed up for or even anticipated. But yeah, there was a lot of guys talking to me. One guy in particular kept making advances on me and giving me things. I was naive at the time. I was like, oh, they're just my friends. They're giving me stuff because they're my friends, and I help them out in quests and whatever. But I guess in hindsight, like if they're paying for the special upgrades to give to me, they probably had other intentions in mind. But anyways, one of the guys in particular started to get feelings for him, and then he would say some sexual things towards me. I kind of liked the attention. Not that I was asking for it, but I liked the attention because I wasn't getting any sexual, validation from other sources. Not to say it was wrong, not to say it was right. It's just what happened at the time. But it ended up being a form of emotional cheating in the grand scheme of things. To not tell this guy no. He ended up like I kept telling him to like cool it off, and then he kept wanting more, wanting to meet and stuff. And then I guess since he was trying to pressure me into advancing into anything, he decided to tell my boyfriend in the game and in real life, that he was a person, he existed, and it really hurt the college boyfriend at the time. But at the time, I felt really guilty because it was a form of emotional cheating. And in hindsight, I probably should have just found a different source and, not dragged it out and all. But anyways, I felt really guilty, and I like harbored that guilt for a long time, even past the relationship of having cheated on the guy emotionally. And that's what brought me to eventually, when I did find another relationship after college, I guess the bad abusive relationship, because I guess in my mind, of course, people make up, all these stories or misbeliefs. I was thinking all the good guys were taken already, all the good guys were getting married, and there was not much left. That was one of my things in my head. And then when I found this particular guy, he actually seemed kind of good. I liked him. We were talking for a while. In hindsight, things are so clear, but when you're kind of in the moment or naive, it's very easy to ignore some red flag signs. So I'll point them out, so you could know not to do them yourself. Like when I first met the guy, for instance, we were supposed to meet at Dave & Buster's. I don't know if you have those over there wherever you're at. It's pretty much like they have video games and like kind of dining area, bar area. And that one was located in a part of town that actually allowed smoking, because it wasn't in San Antonio proper. It was in a like a island city within San Antonio. Anyways, the guy ended up being an hour late, and if someone was an hour late today for me right now, I would totally just leave after 10 minutes. I wouldn't wait an hour. But the guy, I thought he was a good catch, and he kept saying, oh, just another so many minutes, or now I have to do this, and I have to pick my dad, and then so like an hour later he finally showed up. But had I just been objective to that situation of someone being an hour late somewhere to meet you, I could have saved myself years of pain and suffering. But anyways, the guy, he I thought I liked him at the time, I thought he was important and special, and he was treating me nice at the time. But it was all just like a manipulation tactic. I don't know if he was conscious of it. I think he was, honestly, assessing the way he is, from this kind of point of view. It's possible he was doing it on like some sort of instinct without knowing he was doing it, but I think he was aware of what he was doing on some level. Like for instance, I had a dumb phone at the time. I didn't see a need for a smartphone, but he bought me a smartphone, and I was like, oh my god, this guy spent like a few $100s giving me a phone. That must be nice. He must be a nice guy. At the time, I had a roommate who rented out the room behind me, and it just kind of made paying the bills a little easier. And when the guy moved in, when he came to my house, he saw my roommate as a threat. And the roommate didn't do anything like bad or anything like crazy. He was just being a roommate. I wasn't like best buds with the guy, but like we had known each other since even since elementary school. We went to the same neighborhood, same school, so it wasn't like he was a stranger. He was more of my sister's friend than my personal friend, but we had known each other in different classes, so he wasn't a stranger. We didn't necessarily hang out. But anyways, the guy in question, he saw my roommate as a threat, and he gave me an ultimatum at some point, very early on, to pick between between him and then the roommate. Like, he didn't want him there. He even said that he made the generous offer to pay his share of the roommate's money, just so the roommate wouldn't live here, so he could be out of his hair, I guess. I don't think he actually ever fulfilled that aspect, but that's what he said he would do. That's what he said he would do. So me being dumb, thinking I was choosing between a roommate and someone I loved, I was like, well, I'll pick the person I love. I ended up kicking out the roommate and getting deeper into this mess of a bad guy. Yeah. So even part of the scope of the deal wasn't that the guy would move in. It was just that the roommate would move out and just not be here. But I think even before the roommate was gone, yeah, even before the roommate was like moved out, the guy moved in. I didn't ask him to move in. I didn't tell him to move in. I didn't suggest him to move in. He just moved in. Um, he just moved in on his own, you know. One day when I was with him, he was at his parents' house. They were renting a house in the medical center area, and he gathered up his stuff off the floor, kind of in a huff against his parents. I guess he wanted to show his power, you know. He was getting his stuff, and he gathered it, and then he brought it to my house, and then all of a sudden he was moved in. He didn't even ask or, you know, have permission. He just brought it over, and there he was. After that point, he lived here. He didn't actually help with the bills at all. I mean, he was kind of like an adult child. Like, when he had money, he would spend it on beer and cigarettes. He didn't contribute to anything. So now I was out of a roommate. And the roommate was useful. He built shelves for me and stuff. Like, I mean, and he would check the mail. So, I mean, those aren't huge things, but they are useful things. They're helpful things to living in a social community, you know. Like, it's just a house. I mean, it's not like a huge community, but like, it's helpful, it's kind, it's courteous. Things, you know, I didn't ask my roommate to build a shelf for me, but he did, just on his own free will. So that, I mean, that was nice. On the other hand, now that the roommate's gone, I had this man-child here who doesn't pick up after himself. And when he moved in, he really took this house as his own, and not in a responsible manner. Like, he would have parties here, and they would leave shit everywhere. My house was covered in beer bottles and stuff, and like, I'd wake up and like, I wasn't even part of the party, but I was the one who had to pick up the mess, because like, no one else was gonna do it. I mean, the guy certainly wasn't gonna do it. So, and then even when the guy wanted to do like drugs and parties, like, I didn't want to be involved in it, and then he would get mad at me for not wanting to be involved. There was times where I needed to go to work the next day, middle of the week, you know. I mean, people have day jobs at offices, and he wanted to do some hard partying in my kitchen, and I had no idea to the extent of all the crazy shit he was doing on my kitchen table. Apparently at some point there was a girl that he said I think he had sex with her or something. I don't know, but it was at a different house, at least. I don't know. But I was dumb and stupid, and I accepted this. And I accepted all of this because I felt this was the best I could get at the time. I felt, you know, I kind of deserved it, you know, for having emotionally cheated on the college boyfriend. So I didn't really protest or argue with any of this. But yeah, it wasn't good. Like, I mean, when I had started dating the guy, he had a white truck. But once he moved in, it turns out it wasn't his truck, it was his dad's truck. He was just borrowing it. So instead of me having a guy that could drive around on his own, I was starting to have to be his chauffeur. I would have to drop him off at work before I went to work, or I'd have to pick him up and, you know, go, like, I'd get off of work at 5 or 6, come home, and then go pick him up at, like, I don't know, 9 or 10, whatever, whenever the restaurant shut down. So it was just me. It was just, I didn't even have any time for myself. I was just kind of like just driving here and there, and driving not just myself, but this other person around. And it really took a toll on me. I used to enjoy exercising. I used to think it was fun. I used to do it for the sake of it. But once I had to do all this driving here and there and stuff, I didn't have time. There's only so many hours in the day. Another thing was the guy would get severely drunk, really, really drunk, and then he'd start to yell at me. He'd say things like I was a fat cow, I was a whale. He would tell me I'm fat, and I really wasn't. I wasn't fat. Like, I mean, I like to exercise, but I think all of his yelling at me made me gain weight. It's like when you hear it, you start to believe it. And I don't think I was ever really guilty fat. I just got some love handles. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, he was verbally abusive. He was financially abusive. Even towards the end, he kept wanting to use my credit card. He put his like expensive Pixel phone on the credit card, and he never paid me back. I knew he wasn't gonna do it, but he just like wouldn't take no for an answer, and I don't know what right he had to my credit card, but he insisted on it. Even at times when I thought it would be more convenient and helpful, I added him onto my checking account, and I thought, okay, now he could like add his check, and then I could have that to pay some of the bills, because I mean that was part of the deal. Like, getting rid of the roommate, he was going to contribute. But instead of like contributing money, he would just siphon out my money down to like $2 in a checking account, which is, I don't know about you, but that's unheard of for me. And then when I balance the checkbook and see everything coming in and out, all the bills are paid, I'm like, okay, there's only $2. Don't spend anything. Don't spend a dime. He's like, oh, he would be like, oh my God, there's $2. Let me go buy a cigarillo, one of those like single, cigarette things that are cheap. I was like, I wasn't saying there's $2 to spend. I'm saying there's only $2. Like, I mean, there could just be one little fee, and then like the bank account could go out of whack, and you could get fees and stuff, right? But he didn't see it like that. And instead of like saving that $2 for gas, he would want to get beer or cigarette. Like, he'll even just get like the single can of beer or single can of whatever, or like a mini liquor, whatever, anything he could afford with whatever money was left, he would spend it. So I was going from a person who could easily pay their bills up front and ahead of time without having to worry about it, to like being like on the edge. And then my credit card would be maxed out because he'd buy beer and cigarettes on the credit card, like, and he'd drink it like water, you know. But yeah, the guy really sucked. And again, I thought this was the best I deserved. He, even when he moved in, I had two cats. One was a girl calico cat named Lily, and one was an orange cat named Simba. I think Simba didn't like him as much, and cats have different personalities. You had to get coax them to warm up to you and stuff. But I guess since Simba wasn't so forthcoming, he decided, he verbally said this, that one, Lily, he pointed to her, that one's my favorite cat, and that's the cat I hate. And he just made this arbitrary choice to hate that cat, and he would do mean things to the cat. He would chase him around the house. He would like try to flush him out from under the sofa or wherever he was hiding. He wouldn't allow him to sleep in the closet or under a chair. He wouldn't let the cat like have his prime spot on the sofa, which the cat, that was his space. He got so bad that he would smoke pot and then trap the cat inside of the cat carrier and blow it in the cat's face. He didn't do that to Lily. But then the cat would, be freaking out and try to like bite its way out of the cage, and I would just be like there begging him to stop. But me being stupid, I didn't just stop him. That was probably the worst. I attribute my cat going missing because of this abuse. There was also times where the guy would say he was going to commit suicide, and actually that was kind of helpful towards the end of the relationship, because that was not something I encountered before. But I was like, well, if he's saying he's going to commit suicide, I'll just call 911 and they could take him, you know? Like, you can't go saying that lightly. So, I mean, there was one night where he was saying he was going to leave me and stuff, and which I didn't stop him. He got, like, his sushi knife, and he walked out into the street. The knife was in its case, but, I mean, it's kind of weird to be walking around, like, at 3 a.m. with a sushi knife. And then he said he was going to kill himself, so I called 911. The cops came and they took him, and I thought it was over with, you know, like, he's gone and someone's going to take care of him and it doesn't have to be me anymore. He ended up being enrolled in I don't know, some sort of low cost or free social service where they would, like, give you medication and they watched him at the hospital. I thought it was the end of it, but, you know, when you get out of an abusive relationship, you really can't talk to that person ever again. Because at some point, he convinced me to meet him for, like, dinner or something, and then he acted really nice, like he had actually changed. You know, he was just doing this just enough to get his foot back in the door, and you know, I fell for it again. He moved in again, and this time it was worse. It wasn't just, like, clothes. His mom had died, and the family house was being downsized, so he picked up, like, a lot of stuff, like big stuff, furniture stuff, from that house and moved it into my house. So now it was even worse in the situation. Like, it was even harder to move him out because he had all this stuff everywhere. But eventually I was able to get rid of him. I knew I wanted to have it over with. Like, I didn't want to be with him. It wasn't going to go anywhere, but I just couldn't get him out. Like, I physically could not get him out the door. I even talked to a therapist, and I knew I had the goal in my head. I'm going to talk to the therapist to break up with him. So I guess that helped. Just, it was helpful to say what was going on, and then the therapist would be like, yeah, that's not right, or that's pretty crazy. I couldn't talk to friends because the guy had scared away all of my friends. Like, there was one time where we had it wasn't my Halloween, my friends had a Halloween party, and I was invited to go. Typically it was like an annual thing that they always had this party, and I think it was one of their birthdays, like, around that time too, so it was, like, kind of a big deal for them. And I went, like I always went, but then I went with the guy, and he got super drunk, and he almost, like, started a fist fight or something. So then after that, I wasn't invited to their Halloween parties anymore. But yeah, I mean, he made it so I couldn't talk to my friends, like, saying offensive things or cutting them out, saying they're not good, you know, isolating me. Yeah, I mean, it was not a good time, and I had very low self-esteem. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Like, did I attract the guy because I had low self-esteem, or did I get low self-esteem because of him? Like, or, you know, just kind of, like, loop into itself. I was losing my hair also, like, from the high stress of the situation. Like, I kind of accepted that I was going to go bald. I actually had more hair than I had in that relationship, because I used to have more hair, like, before I met the guy, but I was losing all my hair because of the high stress. Something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, in addition to chasing the cat around the house, he escalated into chasing me around the house. Like, if I needed to go to work the next day, I needed a full night's sleep, but then he wouldn't allow me to sleep. He would go, kind of like a kid, when the kids, like, get next to you and they're fighting, like, I'm not touching you, like, in your face, but he would be, like, talking to me, yelling at me in my face when I was sleeping, you know, kind of like I'm not hitting you, but, you know. But then I would move from my bed to the empty room, because I didn't have a roommate anymore. It was just an empty room, not being used. So then I would sleep on the floor. He'd yell at me there. I'd move to the sofa. he'd yell at me there. He wouldn't allow me to sleep. And then I would have to go to work without any sleep all night. And then once I left, he would go to sleep. Because he worked at a restaurant and he didn't need to clock in until restaurant hours, which are not the same as professional business hours. What else? It's just kind of crazy, all these things you accept because you're scared of not wanting to be alone, or you're thinking it's the best you can get, you feel guilty. I mean, the key was really to forgive myself and realize I deserve better. Towards the end of the relationship, there was one of those nights where he wouldn't allow me to sleep. And I was kind of even just escaping my house when you think about it. I was sitting in the backyard garden, and I had my 2 cats at my side. I didn't want to go in the house because he was just doing his yelling like escapade, and I guess I felt safer out there. But I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, I really want this to be over with. Maybe wouldn't it be nice if I got hit by a bus or something? I was like, well, maybe I should just move out. I should move out of my own house, the house that I bought on my own before I even knew the guy. I was thinking of ways like to end it, and I think that's kind of what helped me decide this is stupid. Like, I'm not the one that should leave. He's the one that needs to leave. This is my house. But of all things, the final thing that got me to finally like say no, and it turned everything, it's really kind of stupid, but was when he wanted to make me give equity in my business, because I do freelance graphic design, website design, and I have an LLC. I'm a 99% owner, and my dad is a 1% owner of the LLC. Like in case I die or something, But the guy was he was demanding that I sign over like 50% to him, and he literally didn't do anything. He worked at a restaurant. He didn't make designs. He didn't do things. But it was just a form of control. He wanted to satisfy his ego and say he owned a business probably, and he wanted to make sure I'd always be tied to him, tethered to him, chained to him. And I told him no. And it actually kind of helped, because when my dad was a 1% owner, he would have to agree to the change in ownership percentage shares, And I had described to my dad that Aki was demanding this, and then my dad was like, that doesn't sound right. And my dad wasn't saying it like in a way to flip out or anything. He was just kind of like saying it didn't sound right. He was kind of saying it in a supportive way, in an objective way, not in a judgmental way, I guess. I guess the tone he used was the right way, that I didn't think he was being overreactive, or I didn't think he was being overbearing. He was just kind of like, that doesn't sound right. And then, me hearing me say that to myself, I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound right. So I think the guy had given me like 24 hours notice to think about it, or decide if he leaves, one of his little ultimatums. And I was like, when he came back, he's like, okay, well, are you going to sign this over now, or am I going to leave? And I was like, leave. Leave. I mean, I'm not signing over my business to you. And then once he saw that I was willing to lose him, that, he was expendable, then he realized he lost his power. And then it kind of became like he was trying to prove himself to be worthy, and he really wasn't. One of the spiritual aspects of this too was I kept asking myself, asking the universe, and asking anyone who's listening, like, what would it be like if I ended up marrying this guy? Like, what would it be like? Like, I guess I wanted to know if it was going to be safe, if it was going to work out, would he be better? And I just asked that like repeatedly for a few days, maybe some weeks, I don't know. It's been a while. But I actually got, if you could see, let's see, I got a vision of that, and that's why it's this thing is behind me, this poster, the 2 hands and the handcuffs. because I got a vision, and it was two illustrations of a man, like a bride and groom kind of wrist, and they were handcuffed together. And in conjunction with me asking that question repeatedly, I was like, well, it's going to be like a prison sentence. Not good. Years later, people thought it was a joke graphic, but it was a real graphic. It meant a lot to me. And it kind of showed me, when people say there's visions, like, you could see it, like, you're seeing with your eyes. You just, that's what a vision means. Like, people aren't being metaphorical, they could actually see things. And that's what I had, was a vision, and answered my question. And it also helped me, I think that's kind of what spurred off me going to the therapist, because I was like, okay, well, I certainly don't want to be in a prison situation. So I decided to break up with him. I just needed to actually make a plan and execute it, Yeah. So, I mean, it was a very tense and stupid situation. Like, I should have realized it wasn't getting better any of the previous times, the attempts to break up. Yeah, he just was not good, and he wasn't, like, it did help when I read, either during or after, sometime around that time, reading that book, All About Love by Bell Hooks, where she defines love in her point of view to be an act, like an action. Love is an action, not a passive thing, where love is nurturing, love is kind, love is supportive. It takes actions. You can't just say I love you and that's have to do things to help the person. But so I guess that's kind of why I have higher standards now, and I don't want to take flack from any guys, because if they're doing it in a little bit, whatever they're doing, they might be consciously or unconsciously, like, testing the waters. What can they get away with, or establishing who they are. If they want to be someone who's an hour late, okay, cool, they could do that, but not with me. If there's a guy who wants to not have a job, because this guy, he lost his job. He wasn't even fired, he quit. Like, he had a habit of quitting jobs and putting the financial pressure on me, because in addition to paying for myself and not having a roommate, now I had to pay for his bad habits of cigarettes and beer, which are freaking expensive. Yeah, so, I mean, if I'm looking at a potential dating candidate, I want them to be financially stable. They don't necessarily have to have a job job. They could be an entrepreneur or make YouTube videos of their own, whatever. As long as they have some sort of income that they could carry their own weight, because I don't want to carry anyone's weight again. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm being a chauffeur and a mom to someone. I don't want to be having to do their laundry because they don't do it on their own. I don't want to be cleaning someone else's toilet mess because they can't aim. It's freaking gross. Yeah, I guess another thing the guy did in his manipulation engineering was to adopt a dog. I had 2 cats. Cats and dogs don't generally mix, but he wanted to adopt a dog, and it ended up being more of a chore burden for me than for him, because he didn't take care of the dog as much. It's a living animal. I wasn't gonna, like, not feed it, but it just, the dog was cute and I loved her, but he also used it as kind of like, he was trying to, like, hook me onto him, but I love my cats, more, and I realized, like, when he moved out the final time, he took, like, his essentials with him, his clothes, but he left his stuff here, his mom's stuff, the furniture, and he left the dog here. Like, so then I was having to pay for the dog food and groom it and take care of it, and it's a big dog. It was a American Staffordshire Pit Bull. It was a big dog. Um, and the dog, I mean, since it was around the cats, it kind of thought it was a cat, and it would do cat things and try to perch itself on furniture, and it wasn't trained because I'm not a dog person. I don't have dogs. The guy should have trained it. Like, it chewed up my stuff. It chewed up my PlayStation controllers. It chewed up my phone cord chargers. It chewed up electronics left and right. It chewed up other things too. And the guy was very irresponsible. Like, he didn't replace things once they were chewed. I would have to replace them. And that's not fair. And it's very expensive for me because, you know, I'm here trying to have a nice house, and, you know, stuff is literally just being broken left and right by the dog, and the dog doesn't know any better. It's just an untrained animal, and, you know, it doesn't know that it's bad to chew on things like that. But anyways, yeah, he moved out. He took his essentials with him, and he left the dog. And then he would talk to me and try to, like, ask how the dog was doing and stuff. And at some point, I finally got him to, like, accept the dog. Like, I had to take the dog to him because he's a lazy ass. I had to take the dog to him and give it to her. But he still had his stuff here, and I couldn't get rid of it. So he wouldn't want to pick it up. So since I knew where the guy lived, because I had to drop off the dog, and I knew generally his schedule because he worked a restaurant shift, I one day just gathered up all his crap in my house. Because I had it in the hallway kind of ready to go, but he was like months on end and he didn't pick it up. So I gathered all the stuff, I put it into my car, I drove it to his apartment, and I carried it one by one, all these big heavy things, and left it in front of his door. And the guy actually told me to throw it away, but I didn't feel that was right because it was like, it was stuff and it was photo albums. His mom had died. I was like, don't you want these family photo albums? Like, what kind of weird person doesn't want their, like, photos of their family? It was strange. That was terrible. Another thing that kind of helped me and scared me too, in one of the cycles of trying to break up with him, I was, I guess, becoming more spiritual because I was meditating more. It was something that helped me feel better and calm down, and it was free because I didn't have any money. All my money was spent by this guy. But I was meditating more, and I went to a spiritual themed festival, and of all the weird things, like, one of the tarot card readers there, like, said, you know, flip over a card just, you know, just to see what it was, and then, like, the one card I flipped over was the freaking devil card. In regards to, like, this relationship, and then she asked if I wanted to do a reading, and I was like, to me, I was like, fuck, it's the devil. Like, I already know. I mean, it's just telling me already that, you know, it's a bad situation, and I kind of just, like, kind of scared left. But then I think I went back another 2 or 3 months later, and I did do a full reading, and it was kind of validating that she was able to sense that it was a bad situation. But another helpful thing was, too, that she sensed that there was someone in the future, which I'll talk about in a separate video. It kind of sounded unbelievable that there could be someone else, but it was nice, too, because I was like, well, I mean, then there's hope, you know, there's someone else, and it doesn't have to be this guy. There's options, you know. So it was helpful to hear that. And it's helpful that she was able to sense the situation was terrible. It was kind of validating because the guy was often trying to convince me that he wasn't that bad. He wasn't that bad a person. The things he wasn't doing was bad. His financial, his verbal abuse. And even towards the end of the relationship, I was, like, after the hospitalization when he was on that suicide watch, I was trying to explain to his dad, you know, that his son was financially and verbally abusing me. And the guy was like, but he doesn't hit you, right? And I was like, no, he doesn't hit me, but it's still abuse. And I was trying to, I guess, ask the guy for help, like, but he didn't perceive it as a problem. Like, if there was no physical contact, then if I wasn't getting punched, he didn't think it was a problem. And I was pretty isolated from my family too at the time, but I had described this scenario to my dad, and then my dad told me, like, his dad he's his dad. He's always gonna be like kind of defending him and on his court. He's probably never gonna agree with you. He said something to that. Those weren't the exact words, but it made sense. Like, the guy's gonna be blind to his son's flaws, and the guy is probably even modeled after the father. So it doesn't matter if other people believe you're being abused. You don't have to prove it to anyone. You just have to, it's up to you. Do you feel like you're being abused? That's the question. And if you do, then leave, because, your perception is your reality. And if someone's doing something wrong, you don't have to have someone else agree. Like, it's just what's on your opinion. It's your life. If you think you're being abused, you probably are. I guess there could be cases where you're thinking something like spins out of control, but if you feel like you're being abused, you should probably just leave. Like, otherwise you're going to be accepting whatever you perceive to be abuse. But some of the good takeaways from this was, I became more spiritual again. I used to be spiritual before college. And I guess being in college kind of snuffed it out, being so busy, doing things all the time for class. But I was able to meditate more, and I was getting visions and clear audio. And the guy really didn't like it because it was something he couldn't control. But it was my experience. You can't control someone's spirituality. But yeah, it was such a relief. When I had dropped off that dog, the house was finally quiet. My cats were gone because they were chased out. It was just like empty, and I was like, I kind of felt like it was finally over. And then it felt even better when I had his stuff out of my house, because I really hated stuff. It was just a symbol of him still invading my space, and it felt really good to have it gone. And since the guy told me to throw away his stuff, I figured he wouldn't mind if I sold some of it too, because he had put some charges like that pixel cell phone on my credit card, so it seemed just as well as throwing it away to sell it. He was probably just going above and beyond and being courteous and a nice person to take it to his house or his apartment anyways. I don't even know if he took it inside. I didn't ask. I don't know if people stole it off of his curb either. It was out of my possession, and if he was saying just to throw it away and he didn't want to do any of the work to get it, he even told me to throw it away. He wasn't even going to come over here and throw it away. The guy was just so irresponsible throughout the whole relationship. I was doing all the work, so if I look at a dating potential, I want to find someone who's responsible and that carries their own weight, that picks up after themselves, as simple as it sounds. And I'd rather, I do want a relationship, but I'd rather be single than be with a man-child. That's worse. Being with someone that's abusive is worse than just being single, because you're going to be carrying all the weight, you're going to be doing all the work, cleaning, you're going to be doing all the work, like being the one that works, because the other person's going to be like quitting their jobs on emotional whims. You're going to be doing all the work when you have to take care of the kids or the dog. it's not worth it to be in an abusive relationship for me. I know some people will probably feel like someone is better than nothing. The devil they know is better than nothing. Um, if that's what you want, that's okay. I won't advocate that you do something that you don't want to do, but for me, it's not worth being in an abusive relationship. There is contingencies. If they're not treating me right, that's not a form of love, because if they loved me, they would treat me right, with respect, with honor, with dignity, with kindness, with nurturing. They would go out of their way to help me, even when I didn't ask for help. They wouldn't be burdening me, making them their chauffeur, bringing their little groupies over to my house. Yeah. And I think that it also, I don't think I want to date someone who's into substances. I've never been into substances, but the guy smoked a lot, and then he smoked pot. He did other things too. He also drank a lot. I mean, I think it's okay to drink something sometime on a special occasion, but I don't need to drink to have fun. And I generally don't bring up the topic of drinking unless, it's someone's birthday party and I wanted to, I want to go with the festivities. But I don't drink that much, and I don't even think I've drank more than once or twice during the pandemic, for my birthday, and then for my other friend's birthday. But yeah, this was a terrible relationship. And it lasted, I kind of want to say 4 or 5 years. I'm not too sure. It was multiple years. It never got better. He would change for maybe 24 hours sometimes, and then he would go back to his regular ways. What else? And I guess another spiritual aspect of this was the numerology, years. The year I finally left him was my year 5, which is a year of major change. So, I mean, I guess that kind of lines up. But it felt so much better to have him out of my life. I was finally able to manage my bills and pay my credit card down. I was thankful that I had a very low credit card limit at the time. I had to fix things around my house. His dog had chewed and scratched holes, big holes into my walls. There's even one right there. It's patched and covered. But there's holes here in the hallway and stuff in the other rooms. When he was not training the dog to not scratch the house, I had to fix those on my own. I think he half-assed tried when he was trying to convince me that he was changed, but he didn't do a very good job. And I ended up having to fix them on my own anyways. What else? It was just kind of nice getting my life back together and getting sleep, getting full nights of continuous sleep. You have no idea how bad it is to not get sleep or to get woken up every few minutes. You go crazy and you lose your hair. It just felt so much nicer and more at peace. At the time, I was finally able even to afford a vacation. Actually, towards the end of the relationship, I had gotten a job offer out of the blue, which I feel like I had manifested when I was asking the universe for new things and better things for me. And the guy really didn't want me to take the job because he had essentially gotten me fired from my other job or laid off, whatever you want to call it, because he I told him about some stuff at work, as people tell incompetents to their boyfriends and girlfriends, and he used that information, and it just put me in a hot water at work, and it was never good. So when there's going to be a layoff, they're going to take the person that's in hot water. But anyways, I didn't have a job for like a year or two after that, and I was just doing freelance. And I think he kind of liked that because he was able to control me. I was, contained at the house. And when this new job offer came in, it was a lot of money, and it got me out of the house, out of his control, out of his domain, out of his grasp, and he didn't want me to take it. And I kind of took it as I accepted it. I didn't really see myself wanting a job, but I took it because I knew it would give me the financial freedom I needed to do what I wanted again. Because I used to be able to afford everything on my own, but without having regular income, I couldn't pay the bills anymore, and he made me financially dependent on him. So I took the job, and I was starting to save up money, and as I erased this guy from my life, or not erased, as I stepped back or moved on from him, I was able to go on a vacation, which I haven't been able to afford again since then, but anyways, to Colorado. But so, if you ever hear me reference that one abusive relationship, or when I was in an abusive relationship or something, this is the one I'm talking about. And if you think you're in an abusive relationship, I want you to take care of yourself, prioritize yourself, love yourself, because only you can love yourself. That abuser is not loving you. Anything is better than being in an abusive relationship. If you have to live on the streets, it's better than being in an abusive relationship. You can probably find a women's shelter. There might be men's shelters too. Either gender can be abused, and the abuse can be financial, it can be emotional, it can be physical. There's multiple ways to abuse a person. People are very creative when it comes to that. The abuser will probably not want you to talk about it. They'll want you to keep the problems in-house. They'll probably isolate you from your friends, your family. They'll probably try to make you dependent on them. They'll wear you out, and you'll kill yourself. Not maybe consciously, but like one little step at a time. Not getting enough sleep, not being able to take care of yourself, not being able to afford good food, not being able to exercise, feeling always demoralized. Lots of stuff that will kill you slowly over time. So I guess that's it. I mean, I hope this is helpful to anyone that might feel they're in an abusive relationship or coming out of one. I don't want any sympathy points. I'm just trying to explain how I got to where I am now. Like, I mean, through a lot of pain and suffering, I was able to realize I didn't want that. There's other things out there. There's better things out there. There's so many options out there, and it might be unimaginable to you if you're in a dark hole, but if you trust yourself and if you trust the universe, there's so much more once you climb out of that hole. It might even hurt. The light might even hurt once you crawl out of the hole at first, but you'll get used to breathing normal and seeing normal once they're out of that hole. I guess that's it. I mean, that explains a lot about me. I have another story that might explain a lot about me too, who I am today. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you have any comments, if you want to share anything from your stories, go ahead and comment. Please don't give me unsolicited advice. I'm not looking for advice. I'm completely normal now. And I'm not looking for anyone saying things were not that bad. I can be the judge of that on my own. Okay, thanks.